What is up, everybody? Another edition of the Fantasy Firebox here on the Heat Ratio Sports Network, brought to you by Fox Sports Gambler. I'm your host, Tony Jigsaw Cotillo at TCotillo23. No Pittsburgh John Coker tonight, but in his place, I have a special guest from All About the Birds, my man Jason Sullivan. Jason, what's up, buddy? How you doing?
Thanks for having me on tonight. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for a short notice. We had a little technical difficulties in the beginning, but that's okay. We'll be okay.
I'm ready now.
Absolutely. Well, Al, what's up, buddy? Talking fantasy tonight, Al. So get those picks ready. A lot of stuff to talk about this week. Obviously, it'll do a little quick week 12 in review, week 12 preview, a little week 11 in review. We have some different things that have come up. Like Mike Evans is Tom Brady made him elite? Is Zeke Elliott, did he finally find his first 100-yard game, which is crazy to me that it's the first time that he's got over the century mark. And you have a bunch of Thanksgiving games. We have a Pittsburgh and Baltimore game that's been postponed. I think the early prognosticators say it's going to be Sunday, not 100% positive. But Jason, tomorrow, let's just talk real fast. And everybody who doesn't follow the show, we do the same thing every week. We don't go game by game. We're just talking about, listen, guys, things that have come up, things that have been in the news. First of all, let me ask you one thing about one person, and that is the elder statesman, Frank Gore. He falls into a situation, again, Frank, I still can't believe Frank Gore's even playing, but now he's the number one guy, and I know the Jets absolutely stink, but can you feel comfortable, just from a volume standpoint, of starting Frank Gore?
You know what? I don't know if you could feel comfortable, because I don't think that's the right word. But 4,300, he's getting, like you said, he's getting the touches. I mean, He's about 15 for 60 every single week. Hopefully he falls into the end zone. I'll probably take a stab or two at him. I don't feel good about it. I don't know if he's like 100 years old at this point. I can't believe he's still playing, like you said. But I'll probably take a shot at 4,300, a starting running back for that cheap. I mean,
yeah, I think it's a no-brainer, right? And we speak about, it's funny you said, hope he falls in the end zone, because it's so funny, because the guy's just like a truck, right? It's amazing what he's been able to accomplish. But just sheer volume alone, you're talking 15, 6, he's going to get 20 to 22 touches a game now. There's nobody else there. Nobody. So this guy just alone, and I don't know traditional wise, but as a DFS, like you said, $4,300. I mean, if you're looking for a nice fire plug to throw as your number 2 running back in DraftKings, I think he's a great value. I really do.
Yeah, I don't hate it. I can't believe I'm saying this. But 4,300, if he could easily get 15 points, and if he gets 12 to 15 points, he's paying off his value for you, and that's a good way to pay down. I actually heard I was listening to a show today, and they were talking about him, and they were saying, is Frank Gore a Hall of Famer or not? And it got me thinking, and it's like, yard wise, he has to be, right? But at the same time, it's like, has Frank Gore ever been in the top 5 or 7 running backs in the game at any point?
That's interesting.
Not for a while.
I looked it up because I don't know. He's been around forever. He's productive. Trevor's second. Trevor's got he says Frank Gore's that classic late 90s Chevy Suburban. And so you just keep giving him a little fuel injector cleaner there every now and then, right? But yeah, it's a good question. I don't know if Frank Gore's ever been at the top of anything. From the U, obviously those guys seem like they stand the test of time, but I'll tell you, man, you said it. I don't know about comfortable, but again, if you're looking, and we talk about this all the time, understand. It's funny. My kids will say to me, they're just getting in fantasy. They're pre-teenagers, and I'll have a guy start, and whether it be like Jordan Atkins last week, and my son's like, Dad, that guy stinks. Why are you starting him? I'm like, relax. You don't get it. He was $2,500. You don't understand. Right. I'm packing my stack up top, and I'm getting my early late value on my tight ends. Let me ask you about a guy in New York, and a guy that I've been for the last 3 weeks with telling everybody, pick this guy up. Wayne Gallman, and I just think that Wayne Gallman has really carved a role in that offense. I can't believe Alfred Morris was still around, to be honest with you, which is crazy, right? But he was, and he is. But Wayne Gallman, do you think he has, the ability? I know you also have Deion Lewis out there, but I feel like week in and week out, they're giving him more and more of a chance. He gets the goal line work. Can he be a bell cow back? Can he actually be a running back, like a low tier running back 1?
I feel like he can be. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I feel like he can be too. But I mean, at least 15 rushes at least 10 rushes in each of the last 4 games with a minimum of 13 points in each game. I mean, he's getting the opportunity, like you said, he's getting the goal line work, which is important, and he's scoring touchdowns. He has at least 1 touchdown in each of the last 4 games. So
yes,
I think he is, and that's another one. If you're going to punt at a position 5,000, it's not going to kill you in the salary, and he's, if nothing else, he's probably going to score a touchdown. So I like him this week.
Exactly. Absolutely. Barrett checking in. Robert, what's up, Barrett? What's up, Robert? I'm sorry I called you Barrett, but Dave Montgomery, Wayne Gallman, or James Conner. Conner has been a little cold, so the questions are coming in. Let me say this, and I'll pivot right to Jason. I talked about James Conner, on the show yesterday, and I talked about, listen, week in and week out, his carries are starting to slide. They like McFarland, they like Benny Snell. He's getting 13 carries a week. That's not enough volume for me with James Conner. And let's not forget, they have 3 guys out there in Juju and Claypool and Deontay Johnson that just want the ball all the time. So no, I'm with you. Out of those 3 guys, Robert, I'm going Wayne Gallman. I think he has the best chance to be the guy. Jason, what do you think, buddy?
Yeah, I think 100%. And what you said about Conner is right. I mean, Pittsburgh's throwing the ball 69% of the time. That's insane. I mean, they're not even giving him a chance. And when he does look good, like last week, they still didn't even give him the chance. He still got vultured twice by Snell. So yeah, I don't like Conner at all, and I hate Montgomery every single week. So yeah, I go Gallman for sure in that.
What's the deal with Montgomery, man? Like, I don't get it. Like, I don't understand. Like, everybody's always talked about him, but he's never done anything for me. Like, him and Singletary are like a lost cause at the running back position, aren't they?
It's fun. Yeah, it's funny with Montgomery. Like you said, he was so hyped up this year. I was pumped to get him in one league. I was like, this is going to be a great running back too. He is awful. I mean, it's like 2-3 yards a punch for him. It's not even worth playing him in any league.
It is.
So yeah, it's weird.
Yeah, it is. I don't know what happened to him. Trevor says if you own any Bengals for fantasy, should be off your rosters. Wait, come on, man. You're not trusting that new quarterback they have out there? Come on, Trevor.
It sounds like too. They're not going to have Bernard this week either. So I don't know what that team's going to do.
He's in concussion protocol.
Yeah.
He's like the DeAndre Swift of last week. So it's crazy, man. That Bengals team is falling apart. And again, they prayers to Joe Burrow, man. It's such a shame, man. He was having such a great season, and now it looks like he's going to be out till 2022.
That's the thing that's rough about that too. Is it's going to hurt the receivers. Is that Higgins and Boyd have been so good this year, really, for the most part, and even AJ Green a little bit too. It's just like it pretty much takes all 3 of those guys out of your lineups at this point.
It's a great point because, I mean, T. Higgins has been a find, man. He has been a find. He's a stud. And, A.J. Green was finally starting to come alive a little bit. I mean, they had their own version of a triple threat out there. And now, you're right, Trev. Forget it. All Bengals, just get them off your roster. 100%, man. Johnny checking in, talking about Ryan Finley. Yeah, come on, man. New York State, North Carolina State alum, right? I don't know, man. I'm not pumped up about Ryan Finley. Our man Beer Knowledge, what's up, Phil? It's chilling in the lake right now. I am super mediocre. Deontay Johnson, Brandon Cooks, Fulgham, Robbie Anderson, Aguilar as a second wide receiver in a flat. If that is Deontay Johnson, I hope. Let me tell you something. Deontay Johnson's the second coming to Elvin Antonio Brown. I'll tell you that right now. He is the ultimate weapon for Ben Roethlisberger out there. This guy, the biggest thing with Deontay Johnson is I remember he was the breakout guy for this team. Nobody knew about Claypool. It was all about Deontay Johnson. Could he stay healthy? Could he get on? And I'll tell you what. This kid is a stud. And to think about what they have, and they just breed wide receivers in Pittsburgh. It kills me as an Eagles fan that to just see what they do, but that's where NFL talk. But, listen, Jason, I don't understand how you don't go Deontay Johnson here. Maybe Brandon Cooks, but besides that, I'm not in on any of them.
No, I think you got to go Johnson. Like you said, if he makes it through the game, he's going to put up huge numbers. I mean, he's putting up 25, 30 points a game. If he could stay healthy, that's the biggest thing. Every single game this year, it's either 20, 30 points or he gets injured on, third play of the game or something like that. So if he makes it through the game, he's a wide receiver 1, maybe even a top 10 wide receiver, honestly.
Yeah, he really is. He has done exceptional things. If you look at his numbers and you look at the target numbers alone, what he's been able to do when healthy has been nothing short of breathtaking. It really has. And we've seen this before. with Antonio Brown. And that's why I keep saying Antonio Brown, because I think he is that electric. He is that guy that's going to give you consistently 8, 9 for 101 every single week as long as he's healthy. Another guy is Michael Thomas back. Finally was the week, 19 fantasy points last week. Taysom Hill comes back. That's a dual-edged sword right here. Double jointed question. Is Michael Thomas back, and is Taysom Hill a number one quarterback starter? In my opinion, it's yes to both. I picked Michael Thomas in my top 5 last week. He gave me a tremendous value back. Taysom Hill, whether you're starting him as a tight end, which is a joke, or a quarterback one, but as a quarterback, I think he showed me that, guess what? He's the real deal, and he's here to stay.
Taysom Hill is a weird one for me. I've gone back and forth kind of. I was out on him before last week, but at the same time, I saw what he did with his legs last week, and that's what we like in fantasy, right? We like Lamar Jackson. We like Kyler Murray for what they can do with their legs. Jackson and Murray, they're okay with their arms, but the value's in the legs. And so he's honestly a borderline for me. I wonder if teams take away his running ability, I wonder what he's able to do. I mean, he was obviously, I think he was like 18 for 23 last week, but a lot of dink and dunk passes.
Yes.
I wonder if teams sit on the run and load the box, I wonder what he's going to be able to do.
It's a good point. It's a good point because, I actually had the gut feeling that it was going to be, Mr. Payton out there as a mastermind genius saying, what, I'm saying Taysom starting, but after the first series, here comes Jameis Winston. Yeah. So I was actually shocked, but he played really well. He played really well.
Weird
you make
too.
A good point.
It was weird. Sorry to cut you off. It was weird too about last week is that Kamara wasn't involved in the passing game at all, which if you would have told me before that game what you thought, I would have thought Kamara with a lot of short passing. He's such a good receiver out of the backfield. I would have thought that he would have been super involved in no catches on one target. Like that. That's really surprised me a lot.
Yeah, you're right. I thought Kamara was going to be unreal in that game, and he just wasn't at all. But what's up, Rick? Checking in and says James Conner or Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Right now, for me, I'll let Jason answer it, but I got to go CEH. I mean, even though I thought Lev Bell was going to take over that role because they really like him, but CEH has just shown he gets more volume than James Conner. It's simple as that.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on that one. He doesn't get a lot of the work inside the 20. Bell's kind of taking over that role, but at some point he's going to break one, and that's going to be worthwhile that week. I don't have any faith in Conner at all at this point. I mean, pretty much any other starter I'd rather play than Conner right now. Anybody that gets similar volume.
Yeah, you're right. It's a shame. I just think it's a direct element of them just like to throw the ball. I mean, Ben likes to throw the ball, and now that they have 3 established wide receivers, they're going to throw the ball a ton. And I think that's why Benny Snell has actually creeped into that because he's a better pass catcher and he's a better guy. He's quicker and more mobile out in the flat. So I think this could work in a adverse effect that you have Benny Snell as being more of your hungry guy, right? And at the end of the day, I'm sorry, I'm laughing at one of the comments. I'll get to a second. But at the end of the day, I just think that Conner directly gets killed. His value just gets hurt by this. Jenna wants to know, will Watson show up tomorrow? Yes, Jenna, yes. Deshaun Watson is my number one quarterback of the week, personally. And it's hard for me. Thursday, I know it's Thanksgiving. I hate the Thursday game because, man, if he bums out, you're screwed. And you got a terrible, you're in a bad mood on Sunday, right? There's nothing you can go because you're over there, your quarterback sucked. But I think Watts will show up. What do you think, Jason?
Let me just tell you firsthand, being a Detroit guy, you want to play Watson in your lineups this week. Trust me, you do. You don't need to get cute. Even with the Thursday games tomorrow, I was kind of looking earlier today. I'm, deciding if I want to go with a lesser-owned guy. Well, there's only 2 games now at this point, but I was trying to see if I want to go with a lesser-owned guy or go with the smash play. There's no reason to not play Watson at this point. Detroit can't stop anybody on defense. They've checked out on their coach. 100% I would go with Watson. I think he's my QB1 this week too, as well.
Yeah, I mean, he really, and again, he had a really good week last week. He continued, and it's funny. He was the guy. It's funny. I went on here on a rant. I think like after week 6 because everybody was telling me, Deshaun Watson is not very good. I'm like, wait a minute. Have you guys even watched Deshaun Watson play? This is one of his most productive years in fantasy to date, and he lost DeAndre Hopkins. Like people, I don't think they look really, going deep inside the numbers enough, for that perspective, because Deshaun Watson has been really, really good. And you make a
Yeah.
good point about Detroit.
No, he's a flat out star, I think. And the best thing to happen to him was O'Brien getting fired, right? He's been using his legs now too, which is huge. So it seems like they really opened up their playbook and they have weapons. I mean, obviously they lost Hopkins, which hurts, but Cooks and who's the other one? Why am I drawing a blank?
Will
who's the other
Fuller?
receiver? Fuller, yeah. You know,
he's staying healthy.
Yeah, exactly. They're solid weapons. They can throw the ball down the field. They don't have any running game at all, obviously, but I mean, I like Watson. He's been good all year, and especially in cash games. If you're playing cash, he's got to be a smash playing cash games.
Yeah, I think so too. He does, and you're right. I mean, with O'Brien leaving, I think it kind of opened up the offense. It's a shame they don't have a running game. They put all their chips in David Johnson, which we all knew before. We all knew that was the wrong move. And I'll tell you what's going to be interesting too. 5th-year wide receiver Will Fuller. Are they going to pay him or let him go? It's going to be a very interesting offseason for the Houston Texans. Our man Phil checking is saying, "Get out of here with Taysom Hill. Dude is not an NFL quarterback." Hey, Phil, I don't care if he's not an NFL quarterback. As long as he scores fantasy points, he can do whatever the hell he wants. I don't care.
That's exactly right. I don't want him on my team, but if he's on my fantasy team, that's fine. Make me money and you're cool with me.
Exactly. Andre checking in. What's up, Andre? Michael Thomas is a ghost when Hill was a quarterback unless they get Thomas in screen reverse game. Careful with Thomas. He did have 9 catches last week, though. So he did show that he can be productive even with Taysom Hill. So I'm all in on Thomas. I will grant Andre. I know you know your stuff, but I'm all in on Thomas. Johnny checking in. Jakeem Grant, Zach Pascal, or Russell Gage. Man, how the hell did you get into a 16-team league, man? My Lord, I'll tell you what I will say about this. Jakeem Grant was my pick for my sleeper pick last week, and he was very underwhelming, which sucked. I thought he was going to take a step back. I don't know because Tua got hurt, then kind of got benched, and then Fitzpatrick came in, and they really didn't look his way. But I'll tell you, I still would go with Jakeem Grant. I don't like Russell Gage a little bit. I don't like Zach Pascal. We're going to get to Michael Pittman and Jr. in a little bit. What do you think, Jason?
Got to go Jakeem. I know he was bad last week, but 2 weeks ago, I think he put up like 16 points. I played him. I think he was 3,100 that week, and he actually won me some money. So yeah, I like him. I think he's a good player. His salary is super cheap, and obviously in a 16-team league, you're not going to have other guys that you're going to be able to pick up on the waiver wire. So yeah, I think Grant has the biggest upside by far. I'm not a fan of Pascal or Gage, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I know Gage the first couple weeks looked like he could be a player out there. Then he kind of he really fell off the list a little bit. Even with the injuries to Ridley, he really didn't step up. So I have no interest in Russell Gage and Pascal. I think. Listen, I don't even think it matters, to be honest with you. T.Y. Hilton should be better than he is, but Michael Pittman Jr., I go right into that. Michael Pittman Jr. was my pick last week. He came on ever since the injury. He came back a week, I think week 7. He came back in, and he's a really tall, strong receiver. And I mentioned in the preview about Vincent Jackson, and it's because Philip Rivers loves that big tall guy, and he loved Vincent Jackson, and Michael Pittman Jr. reminds me of Vincent Jackson, and he's starting to get all the looks, isn't he? I mean, he's getting to that point where he will take over that number 1 role in Indianapolis.
That's the thing too. It's hard to like any receiver at this point, I think, with Philip Rivers, but at the same time, he's the guy. If you're going to zone in on one guy, he's definitely the guy. I mean, he's got boomer bust playability. He's big and strong, like you said, too. And, I was thinking about this today. How good is this wide receiver class? I mean, it's stacked. Yeah. It's deep. It's like you have a lot.
Except for the Eagles.
Speed guys. Yes. Well, and the Lions, too. But you have speed guys. You have big, strong guys like Pittman. It's like this wide receiver class is really, really good.
And you make a good point too. And think about this: when was the last time we had this many rookie wide receivers that were fantasy relevant? Right? I mean, you think about it, like Jerry Jeudy, Justin Jefferson. I mean, we never had these kind of guys that were that relevant in fantasy. It was always 1 or 2. That was about it.
Yeah. Yeah, it was always like, play 1 or 2, never draft more than 1 on your season long. That was kind of always my thing. Maybe take a chance and maybe on somebody like Jerry Jeudy and maybe you get lucky. But yeah, it's weird. It's like these guys are not just good for rookies. These guys are elite receivers at this point, which is crazy.
It is. They really are, and I love it. It's just the game has changed. I mean, you watched AJ Brown last year, right? I mean, who would have thought? It's just it's amazing what these guys have been able to do and master, especially in a COVID year where they haven't even had time to learn a playbook, right? It's nuts. It's nuts. Phil's Taysom Hill owned his tight end over 60% last week. Killed value in DFS. I hear you, man. I do, and I think they're trying to do something with that. I don't know, even if they can, but I mean, listen, here's my thing. Sometimes you got to be the bigger man, and you just got to, listen, you got to look past that and say, you know what? Maybe I shouldn't start him as a tight end because it's kind of like a dick move. Like, come on, man. You're you're not getting up on everybody. Just be a man, put him in as your quarterback, and see if you can win your league like that. That's all. I mean, I hate the tight end spot for Taysom Hill. I thought it was ridiculous.
Yeah, I thought it was too. I know ESPN for sure corrected it. He's not tight end eligible anymore. So hopefully the rest of the sites do that too. Because like you said, that's just kind of a bush league move a little bit.
Yeah, man. So, I mean, come on. Yeah. You want to win the right way. That's what I want to do. Jenna checking in says, I have 2 flex spots, Jefferson and Kupp and Michael Thomas. That's a good question. Ooh. Yeah, listen, Jenna's an avid follower of the show. She has a tremendous roster. She's made some really good moves. I'll tell you what, I was a little skeptical of Cooper Kupp until this week because I know he was nursing a wrist injury, and I really like the rise of Josh Reynolds, and all of a sudden Robert Woods comes back out of nowhere and he wants to be a stud, right? Here's the thing I will say. Justin Jefferson, for me, out of those 3, is the most inconsistent guy. I like Jefferson. He's really good. But if you look at his numbers, he's on again, off again for me every single week. I mean, it never changes for him. Now, he's very good, and at any time he could pop off with that really, really big game. But the problem is we're talking about fantasy need consistency. I mean, right? If you look at, his numbers, I mean, he goes, here's his numbers from week 1, 2, 3, we'll throw them out because he's a rookie. But then we're going 7, 4, 3, 9, 3, 3, 8. 3. So, I mean, if you're playing devil's advocate, looks like he's in line for another 3 this week. I'm not sure, but I would definitely go with the latter. I would go with Kupp and Thomas.
Yeah, I think I would too. For the most part, I brought up this point last week on the All About the Birds show, is that with Jefferson, he has potential to put up 40 points in the game, right? But he also has potential to get you 3 points in the game, which is tough. So, yeah, season long, I think you definitely go Kupp and Thomas, and you feel comfortable about that. Cooper Kupp is honestly very underrated. They just have a lot of weapons on that team, and it's like they mix it up who they go to. Like you said, Woods sometimes. The running backs, that's a nightmare to try to figure that out. But they have a lot of weapons on that team, and so, but he is a stud. He's a good receiver. So, I'd go Kupp and Thomas.
He really is. And I'm not trying to play into the the white receiver kind of thing, but listen, he is every bit of like when Kevin Curtis was really big for the Rams. He's very big, he's solid, he's fast, he does a lot. And like you said, McVay sometimes guys are so smart that they call so many different plays. You just never know. Like you said, who's going to be the mouth to feed this week? And it just happened to be Robert Woods. So, I mean, it's week to week, but I think Kupp has every makings to be an elite receiver for fantasy. Mm-hmm. He just has to be more consistent. But for this week, I would definitely go with the latter. Alan, what's up, Alan? Just had to say hi. Doug sucks. He sucks harder, and Jeff is a beneficiary of him sucking, and he's always otherwise he'd have fired him already. That's a great. That was for last night. But again, Alan, what's up, man? Happy Thanksgiving. I agree with you 100%. How's that? Jenna's trolling me again. Jigsaw, love watching Carson pick 6. I know, Jenna. I know. Trust me, I get it. Robert checking in with a good question. Amari Cooper, Chris Godwin, Travis Fulgham, or Robbie Anderson got to start too. Jason, I'll let you take this first.
You know what? I'm going to go Cooper and Godwin out of those ones. Godwin is like that sneaky guy that if you watch the games, he doesn't really ever impress you that much, but he always gets there on the line. So, yeah, I like Godwin, and I like Cooper now that Dalton's back too, I think. Anderson just doesn't score touchdowns. That's the biggest thing. He's got 1 touchdown on the year. I mean, you want to think, especially with Bridgewater back, that you want to think that he's going to be a good deep threat, but at the same time, he just doesn't get touchdowns. And I don't have any confidence. Sorry, no offense, but I don't have any confidence in your Eagles at this point.
No, I wouldn't either. I mean, until you see that turn around, I mean, listen, you need a guy to be able to throw the ball consistently, right? So here's the thing about Amari Cooper. He sneakily, like I still think this is CeeDee Lamb's team now under Andy Dalton. It's just I just think he really likes CeeDee Lamb. But I just, like you said, Robbie Anderson had a great, like 3 or 4 weeks in a PPR league. He was tremendous. Even though he didn't score, he's 25 points. He's getting 10 for 128, but now it's kind of dropped off a little bit. And they're really liking Curtis Samuel out there. And he's getting involved more and more and more, which is hurting Robbie Anderson. So I'm with you. I would go Cooper and Godwin. I think they're your 2 studs out of those 2. I don't think you can go wrong, to be honest with you.
You know what's funny, too, about Cooper? He's another one of those guys where it's like he's not going to blow you away. He's not going to wow you with the 80-yard touchdown or anything like that. But it's one of those guys that, like Godwin almost, where you look at the end of the game and you're going to see he's got 15, 16, 17 points and, solid 6-7 catches. He's solid. Especially in cash games, he's really solid.
No, you're right. You're 100% right about that. And he's sneaky solid because sometimes, because he doesn't score, I'm like, did Cooper even do anything? And I look and he was like 10 for 120. You're like, what? Holy crap, man. Like, where did this come from? Amazing. Dan, what's up, buddy? How you doing, man? Jenna checking again. Niners got to get smashed by the Rams this week. Yeah, I kind of think you're right on that, Jenna.
Yeah.
That's probably going to happen. Let's see, Andre checking in on talk going forward. Dan says, who do you lean on to each week between Claypool and Johnson? Honestly, Dan, I think it's Johnson all the way. Johnson is the guy. As long as he's healthy. Claypool, it's funny because this reminds me so much of Plaxico Barris and Hines Ward, because Hines Ward was the guy, was a stronger guy, like Claypool, built a little differently, didn't have the dramatic numbers every week, had really good numbers, but Plaxico was a flashy guy. And I think this is the same thing. Johnson's a flashy guy, Claypool's a Ward guy. So I would definitely go Deontay Johnson. I think you think the same, right, Jason?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I'm all over Johnson. I'm going to play Johnson every single week that he's healthy. I go Johnson, too. I do like Claypool, having said that. I think Claypool actually probably has the higher ceiling, but week to week, I'd go Johnson for sure.
10 touchdowns, too, which is crazy.
I know, that's crazy.
Oh my God. Dan says, I want a Claypool with the birds. I want to, hey, Dan, I wanted anybody for the second round. Okay, that could catch a ball. How's that? Bearded Knowledge, second in man, Phil, the all season long question. We saw no you know what? This is a good one, Phil, because this killed me. Because every time I thought Edmonds was ready to take that next step, then they want to hand it to Drake. And now actually Drake looked good last week. He looked really good. So this is so hard, Jason. So hard because Edmonds, I'm kind of thinking they thought, maybe Edmonds would break down if they gave him too much. So they have to give the ball to Drake a lot. But I'll tell you what, Drake actually looked really good last week.
This is another one that just drives me absolutely insane. I think about this every single week, and I never get it right. So I probably am not the right person to answer this question. But, yeah, Drake did look good last week. But a couple weeks ago, Edmonds was the one that looked good. And he looked like he was the one that was explosive and had the big playability. So I don't know. I stay away from it, to be honest with you. I just go with Kyler Murray on that team because I can never get that one right.
Yeah, these coaches are killing us, man. They really are. It's like, and other guys, Anthony Lynn, and you have Austin Ekler coming back. It's like, who are you going to give the ball to? Come on, man. You kill us with first Joshua Kelly, then it's Justin Jackson, then he gets hurt. Then all of a sudden, Kalen Balazs comes out of nowhere. They got Pope out there running the ball, and right now Austin Ekler. Like, could you just pick one? Do they realize we're trying to play fantasy here? Like, do they understand what we're trying to do? It's crazy, man. They get so frustrated.
With that team, I feel like it's got to be Ekler, right? Balazs has got a lot of touches, and I know that Lynn loves him. But at the same time, he's been like a 15 for 60, like one of those guys. It's not like he has no big playability at all. He's never been special. So, yeah, it's got to be Ekler when he comes back, you would think. But I guess
now
never really know.
The word is that they don't know if Eckler's playing this week or not. I'm not sure, but I agree with you. It's got, if he's healthy, it has to be. You just paid him a ton of money. There's no way that you're using Kalen Balazs instead of Austin Ekler. There's just no way, man. Dan checks in and says, any chance Hill gets volume over Gus Edwards? Great value this weekend. Yes. I'm sorry, I was going to go to Jason first, but he's already started. I love Justin Hill. I do. Justice Hill to me was a guy in the beginning of the year I said, keep an eye on. I just liked him. I thought he gave you the ability to do so many different things, and this is a perfect opportunity for him. He's a guy who can catch the ball, he can run routes, and he can run through the tackles. So I think even though, listen, look at the history of this team. They already were in a three-way split between Ingram and Dobbins and Edwards. So they're definitely going to split carries. So he is going to get volume, and I think he's going to be a really, really low number. What do you think, Jason?
No, I think the same exact thing. And Hill was actually getting on the field last week as well, even when he was still getting some opportunities last week. So I definitely like Hill. I think both of them for the value, for the price. I think that both of them are in play though, for sure.
Oh yeah, without a doubt, they are definitely both in play. They have to be, because listen, again, understand how you have to build. I tell everybody, it all depends on who you want to pay in DFS. Do you want the high salary? Like for instance, and we're going to get to this, in a minute, but if you look at the running back position, right off the bat, are you willing to spend $9,500 for Dalvin Cook? If you are, which is fine, it's your prerogative, but you're going to have to take a lesser guy at either your flex or your other running. You can't fill $9,000 players all over. So you have to be able to flip and take the hit in different areas. And guys like Gus Edwards and Justice Hill are definitely the guys you can look at for tremendous value when you're trying to stack a lineup that starts, again, with Dalvin Cook.
You know what? I think that's a great point that you just made too. And when you go down to the low fours or right around $4,000, are you going for somebody that you know is going to get you 8, or are you going to go for somebody that, hey, he could maybe get have a big day and give me 15, 20? Yep. That's going to win you a tournament if he does that. So yeah, I have no problem taking a chance on those guys. You want the volume, especially down that low, and I'd rather take a boom or bust chance at that point that he might hit big. One of those guys might hit big.
Absolutely. I know Gene. What's up, Gene? Checking in from Wire to Wire. Good podcast. Checking in. I know they go live later tonight. He says versus Pittsburgh with a question mark. I'll pass. I get it. Good defense. I understand. But, this is 2020, and you have to look at the way that team is structured. Lamar Jackson's not going to throw the ball 40 times. So they're going to spy on Lamar Jackson, which is going to give them the ability of Gus Edwards and Justice Hill to get out in space. So, again, they're still mixing Des Bryant in. They finally get Mark Andrews back to some kind of relevancy. So I still think that they have a really good value going forward. My buddy Rick checking in, Survivor, maybe my only chance to use an NFC East team. Giants over the Bengals or Seahawks over the Eagles. Also have Rams or Browns. Both have divisional games, though. Wow, that's a tough one. Hey, he's still in it. Rick, my man is still in it. I love it. Man, this is a tough one. I honestly would go Seahawks. I do. I think the Eagles are dead in the water. I do. What do you think?
I think the same thing too. And I don't know about you, but I don't feel confident picking the Giants over anybody ever. I know that the Bengals obviously don't have their quarterback anymore, but I'm not going to feel good about picking the Giants ever.
You know what? Here we go. This is a good one. My man Al always coming in with the good info, and I didn't even think about this. Should I still take Hill since they moved the game? Starters might be back by Sunday. That's a good point.
That's a good point.
I didn't even think of that. So again, I say this every week, prefaces by saying this is Wednesday. And unfortunately, we do this show. We look ahead as best as we can. On Sunday mornings when I go live for the Gambler, I try to give you as much insight as I can at that time. So I'd say wait till Sunday. Just wait. Because you don't have. What I do is I build my roster on Wednesday, and then I constantly look at it and I go through it on Sunday, see what changed. Right. So that's a good point, though, Al. I didn't even think of that at all. Because I'll tell you what, Jason, if the Stars are back, there's no reason to have Justice Hill. Zero.
No, he's absolutely right. Yeah, that's a great point.
Dan says, I'm doing 5 flex Thursday night, multiple scenarios.
Oh, jeez.
Man. Oh, my God. Dan, you're an animal. Gene says, Wayne Gallman, much better play. I'll give you that. I would definitely start Gallman over any of them. Would you, Jay?
Yeah, 100% I would. Like we said earlier too, Gallman, I mean, he's getting the opportunities, he's getting touchdowns. That's the key. And at $5,000, yeah, I think, especially on DraftKings, I think that's definitely the play.
Yeah, 5,000. That's a steal for him. 100%. Gene says for the Survivor, Giants over Bengals. Bengals are starting Brandon Allen. That is a good point. We just talked about that with the Bengals. This could be the week to use the Bengals. The Giants aren't setting the world on fire, but I mean, the Bengals are hurting, man. They are hurting, man. They are hurting. So, good luck, Rick. I hope you live to see another week. Let's get into DraftKings a little bit, Jason. What we like to do here is we like to look at DraftKings lineups and look at some locks and some guys that are value picks. And, we start right off at the quarterback position. I know our boy Phil is going to love this, but for me, against Denver, because you mentioned it about using his legs, Taysom Hill at $6,200 to me is a really good value play. You have to look. Number one, $8,200 for Kyler Murray. You're going to get a guy in $2,000 less that could essentially give you maybe a 10-point drop-off or even give you exactly the same as Kyler Murray against New England. So for me, Taysom Hill, 6,200, I think he's a good pick. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree with you for the most part. And I think, DraftKings is finally pricing up the quarterback position. I know I said that a few times in my article for All About the Birds, but even Herbert was in the low sixes for a long time. That was a comfortable number to play for him. You're getting 25 points a week. He's 7,200 this week, right? So you're going to have to pay up if you want to use that stack now. So if you're going for a lower end stack, I challenge you to find a higher upside in a lower end stack with Hill. You know what I mean? So I'm all about Hill this week.
I used that stack last week. I had Herbert, I had Balazs, and I had Allen. What a stack that was, man. That was tremendous.
100%. What's funny too is that DraftKings has finally priced up the quarterback position, like I said too. So in years past, you could find these guys like Matt Ryan would be in the low sixes, guys like that. Now, every single guy that's worth playing at the top end is going to be 7,000 or maybe even 8,000 at this point now. So it's a lot harder to find value stacks at this point. So if one presents itself, don't shy away. That's my rule pretty much.
No, you're right. You're right. Now, when you look at the quarterback position, you look at any value, you see any values on there besides Taysom Hill, something that stands out to you, or you think everything's kind of just falling in suit?
I'm a sucker for two guys every single week, and sometimes it burns me and sometimes it doesn't, but I love Teddy Bridgewater and I love Cam Newton. Especially Cam is a little bit tougher because you can't really stack Cam, I found out. Obviously, throughout this year, I've tried to stack him several times, but Cam's solid. And 6,400, he gets a lot of the work inside the red zone for his team as well, too. So I don't mind Cam this week on the lower end. What about you?
I like Cam. I think that's a good pick. I mean, he's going against the 30th defensive fantasy against the quarterback position. And if you look at his last 4 weeks, respectively, he's averaging 21.3 points per game. So you're talking about, and again, in DraftKings, 20 points for your quarterback is a really good number. People don't understand that because they don't give you any bonuses. They don't give you anything like a traditional fantasy league does. They're not 1 point per 20 yards or 1 for 25. They're lower scoring than you're used to. So if you can get 21 to 22 points for 6,400 steady out of your quarterback, it's a definitely good way to go. I do like that pick a lot. I actually like, you mentioned the name earlier. I'm looking at Matt Ryan at 5,900. I know he hasn't been great, but he's at home against Vegas. He's back inside the dome. He didn't have a great week last week, but here's what I'm looking at. The last 4 weeks, we go 21, 18, 23, 7. Now, he played a really good New Orleans team. I told everybody, and I'm not the guy to pat myself on the back, but I said, be careful with Matt Ryan against New Orleans because they have a rebuilt defense out there. They're doing very well, and Dennis Allen knows how to scheme, and that's what happened in that game. So I think this is the game Matt Ryan comes back. And at under $6,000, I think you can get a guy that's going to give you 25 to 30 points this week against a Vegas team that's very susceptible to the big play.
Yeah, no, I love that play too, 100%. And Matt Ryan was really hurt last week by Julio going out. What was it, like 5 or 6 plays into the game? He was out for the rest of the day. So that team is different. Yeah, that team is different when they got Ridley and Julio on the field. So yeah, no, I love that price for him this week. In a week that it's kind of hard to find value on the slate for the quarterback position.
It is. It is. It definitely is. Now, one of them reasons could be the Thanksgiving Day. And again, I'm not really going to touch much on the games tomorrow, only because, listen, by the time, here's what we do. We go live with this show. We podcast it. It goes up. It's on a Heat Ratio page. It goes on the Fox Sports Gambler page. It's on iHeart. People listen to it for their games. So nobody wants to hear old news. No, for the live version, yes, there are 2 games tomorrow. I will touch on them very briefly. I think guys like Zeke Elliott, I think guys like Antonio Gibson. I'm a Antonio Gibson guy. I think tomorrow is a J.D. McKissick game from from what I talk about from scoring and targets. The normal guys tomorrow, Jason, in my opinion, are going to be the guys that produce. Do you see anything different than against the norm tomorrow?
No, not for the most part. It's honestly probably the worst case scenario for the NFL for 2 games at a time.
Yes.
The Lions, obviously, you don't want to touch the Lions. Matt Stafford, they said it was a ligament problem. News is coming out in Detroit now that he has a broken thumb. So I don't really want to play any quarterback that has a broken thumb on his throwing hand. So I'm out on the Lions. I'm going to go heavy, like you said. I'm going to go heavy on the Redskins, and I'm going to go heavy on the Texans, which there's not going to – a lot of people are going to do that too because there's not very many options. Yeah, it's about the worst case scenario for tomorrow's 2 games.
It is. What about? Have you heard anything about Swift? Is Swift definitely good? I thought last time it was probable, or is he still in concussion protocol?
I believe he's out of protocol. I think he did a limited practice today, so okay. I think he's trending to play. So yeah, if he's in the lineup, that's a smash play too.
I love Swift. I do. We talked about earlier in the year. We broke down every division, and when we got to Detroit, we talked about Swift. He was a special player. I just think he was a guy that could do so many different things. They gave him some time. We say on this show a lot, as a rookie running back, 2 things you have to do: you have to control the ball, and you have to control the pass protection. Protect your quarterback, and that's how you stay on the field. And I think he's begun to do that. And I'll tell you, Detroit at least has that going for him. At the running back position,
for sure. He kind of forced the coach's hand too. They want, like you said, they kind of slow played it with Peterson and even a little bit of Kerryon Johnson. But he's forced their hand now. I mean, he is so head and shoulders above anybody else in that locker room. So yeah, he's probably the most talented player on the team, and they know they have to play him now at this point.
And Galladay out. I just heard Galladay's out this week, so now we're back to Marvin Jones and Marvin Hall and Danny Amendola. I mean, maybe T.J. Hawkinson. I don't know, but like you said, you got a guy that's basically disabled throwing back there with a bad thumb. So I don't know why you want to start any of these Detroit guys when it comes to a pass catching scenario. But Dan says McLaurin is steady. Yes, Scary Terry is very steady, and kudos to Alex Smith. I mean, a guy who basically had his legs shredded, and he's back play. And I said this before. Here's a guy who had guaranteed money. He had there was no reason for him to come back except for the love of the game. He did not have to come back at all. And, to see, all kidding aside, with what's going on with that Washington football team out there with Ron Rivera beating cancer, comeback sort of year with Alex Smith. The NFC East with those guys has been tremendous. I'm a Jack Del Rio guy. I love him as a defensive coordinator. I mean, that team, if they continue to assemble players and talent, that Washington team is going to be a very fun team to watch in the very, very near future.
Yeah, I know you guys are Philly fans, obviously, but they are a fun team to watch, like you said. And it's hard not to root for them. You obviously want Alex Smith to do good. Terry McLaurin just seems like a good dude. Like it just seems like one of those guys that you'd want to root for. And Rivera too. It's a good story. And yeah, McLaurin. It doesn't matter who plays quarterback. He's still steady as can be and scores touchdowns too. So a lot to love with him.
Yeah, I like him a lot, man. I do. I like Terry. Dan says Jones has killed me. I'm guessing he's talking about Daniel Jones. Listen, I came into this year thinking Danny Jones was going to have a really good year. I thought Jason Garrett was going to be able to formulate an offense around. He has some really good weapons out there with Shepard and Slayton and Evan Ingram and Saquon Barkley, who obviously is injured now, but I don't know, man. He's really regressed. I don't know what it is. He doesn't look like a very good quarterback. And it's pretty sad that his completion percentage is a lot better than Carson Wentz right now, which is really, really bad. 100%. Well,
Danny Dimes, too. He can't keep the ball in his hands. I mean, I've never seen a quarterback fumble more than he fumbles. Oh. He puts the ball on the turf constantly. He's just a turnover waiting to happen.
It really is. Oh, Dan says Marvin. Sorry, Dan. He was all about Marvin Jones. See,
Marvin Jones.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Yeah, well, Marvin, see, the thing with Marvin Jones, he's always been inconsistent in fantasy. No matter what, he's been boomer bust. You just got to hope that you pick the right matchup.
That's the thing, too, with him is I've never seen a starting receiver that actually has decent speed get no separation. I don't know. You obviously don't watch Detroit games like I watch, but he gets no separation no matter who is covering him ever. So all of his catches are contested catches. I mean, even he had a touchdown that was called back last week, but he made a ridiculous catch in the end zone. I mean, it's like guy gets no separation. He's not big and strong, so he's not going to get separation that way. So, yeah, he's a hard guy to figure out. And I never do a good job of that for sure.
He really is. I mean, one week you think it's going to be, it's like, who is it? The Marvin brothers. It's Hall or Jones. Who's going to be the guy to kind of, basically take over the slack out there? But I wouldn't start either of them anyway. So that's regards. I looked at the running backs for DraftKings. And again, we already talked about Dalvin Cook. And there's two guys, Jason, in my opinion. Dalvin Cook and Devontae Adams are the only guys, in my opinion, that you actually pay up and still get value. I mean, you're 10 grand basically, just call it as it is, for Dalvin Cook. $10,000 in DraftKings is a third of your salary gone.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So that's tough. It's a tough pill to swallow. But here's the thing. When you look at his numbers, he actually has been that friggin' good, which is crazy. I mean, listen, the guy, except for week 10, he dropped off in Chicago. But we're talking about 51, 42, 30. These are unbelievable numbers. So, obviously he is going to have a game like he did against Chicago, but he's going up against Carolina, who, Jason, me or you could probably run the ball against this team. They do not stop the running backs very well at all. So if any week that you were kind of leery about spending $9,500 for Dalvin Cook, I would lean towards and say this could be the week where you could feel comfortable and confident at home against Carolina Panthers. What do you think?
No, I completely agree with you too. What's funny is he had 29 points last week, and they threw 2 passing touchdowns from, I think, inside the 2-yard line to Thielen.
Yes.
So he could have easily, they give him the ball and he scores 2 touchdowns and he has another 45-point game. So, yeah, I love him this week. Carolina, like you said, can't stop anybody against the run except for the Detroit Lions, who they stopped last week on the run. But that defense, their secondary is okay, but up front, that defense is awful. So, I think Cook, I don't know how you don't play Cook every single week. He's kind of like McCaffrey was last year.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. He's a guy, when you set your DraftKings lineup, I'll tell you what, the last 2 weeks when I've set my DraftKings lineup, I've started with 2 guys, Cook and Adams, and I've seen what I could do between those 2 guys. How could I formulate a lineup around them? Because they are as steady as they come. And another guy, Dan checking in, tells about Kamara. He's right, too. Kamara is another guy who's very, very steady. He's $8,200 this week. So, I think you could be very comfortable. Now, what I will say is I think a lot of people are going to jump on the Derrick Henry wagon because he had a good week last week. $7,900 is a lot of money against a very, very good Indianapolis Colts defense who stops the run, stops the pass, gets to the quarterback. I'm not comfortable at all dropping $7,900 for Derrick Henry this week. His matchups will get better, but for me, Jason, this is not the week for Henry.
No, I agree with you too, for the most part. He did have a huge game last week, and he got vultured by a couple play action passes to the tight end as well inside the 5, which is weird to see from that team. It's kind of, I don't know, kind of puts you on tilt a little bit when you're watching those games. But yeah, I agree with you. He's very matchup dependent, and he has had some clunkers this year. I mean, I play him almost every single week, and he's had a couple games where he gets 8-10 points, and at 7,900, like you said, you can't pay up for that. I'd rather go with the guys that are more consistent, like Kamara or Cook, and know what you're getting.
Definitely. I mean, there's some really good values. One guy, I'll say I'm looking at this week as a value guy is Nyheim Hines. Nyheim Hines, I know he's hurt a lot of people. He has, because you just never know how they're going to use him or when they're going to use him. But I just think that at his number at $4,600, he's. Again, I'm going to play the eeny, meeny, miny, mo game here, because week 8, he's 21. Week 9, he's 6. Week 10, he's 28. Week 11, he's 8. So to me, this is a 20-point week, just going by the pattern, okay? So for $4,600, I'm going Nyheim Hines. Any other values that you see in a running back position out here?
Hines is probably my favorite one, to be honest with you. Like you said,
okay.
I want, like we talked about earlier, I like boomer bust in that position. You're not going to play a $4,600 running back and think like, oh yeah, I can count on 15, 20 points, right? You're thinking, I want the guy who could maybe get you 21, like you said, or 25, something like that. And I'll accept it. If he gets 6, it's not going to kill me at 4,600. So yeah, I like that a lot. Not a ton of value that really jumps out at me, to be honest with you. I love Gallman, which we talked about already. Besides that, James White is kind of back in the picture a little bit in New England. That was one I was going to ask you about and see what you thought about that. He's kind of been okay the past few weeks. 4,500.
And you know, it's funny you bring him up because I stayed in for the most part. I didn't join any of my normal traditional leagues except one. I was like, I'm going strictly DFS this year because of COVID and injuries. I don't know what's going to go on. So I stayed in one, and I actually did draft James White, and I dropped him 3 weeks ago because he just wasn't doing anything. But now Rex Burkhead gets hurt. And all of a sudden now he's pressed into more duty, and he gets his 9 targets, which we're used to, 6 for 64. He's the guy who's going to catch the ball. And I think if Cam Newton develops that rapport with him, you know, Cam used to love throwing to Christian McCaffrey, right? So if, you know, Damian Harris is a bigger guy, he's the Corey Dillon type back. So James White is definitely the Kevin Folk of yesteryear of now. So he's the guy. I like James White going forward. So I'm glad you brought him up because I think he's a good value. $4,500 again. If he can get you, he doesn't really score. We know that James White doesn't score, right? But he's a PPR beast. And when you don't have Edelman and you don't have Burkhardt behind to steal carries, listen, James White is probably your most reliable catcher on that team.
Yeah, if he can put up 12 points, I mean, that's a win for you, right? 12 to 15 points. You're happy with that. So I think he can do it, especially like you said, if he can develop that rapport with Cam. I mean, he's a good back out of the backfield. If he gets a couple, you know, rushing yards, that's just a bonus for you. And, you know, maybe one day he can actually score a touchdown. That might help too. But
yeah, exactly. You're 100%. Let me ask you, I want to ask you about Cam Akers because he's intriguing to me because obviously Cam Akers, again, rookie running back. We heard a lot about him coming in. Nobody really expected Henderson to really take over the reins early on. We all thought it was probably going to be Malcolm Brown. It seemed like it was Henderson. Cam Akers kind of got the shaft because, you know, behind the scenes, he was having problems with the playbook. He was having problems mastering at pass protection. He put a lot of work in. Behind the scenes, if you read about him, he put a lot of film study in. And if you notice, he's starting to get more and more acclimated to a lead back role. Now, he hasn't really scored, even though he did this week, was the first time in a while. But he is getting the bulk of the carries. $4,200 against a San Francisco team that is completely depleted. Now, I know it's hard. I don't like to bank on touchdowns. But Cam Akers, he's getting the carries. And again, if he can get those more and more carries stepping up at this number, I don't know if this is the week or not, but I think going forward, I really like his perspective. What do you think about Cam Akers?
Yeah, I like him too. And, you know, I always kind of try to think, I don't just look at it like, what did he do last week? I try to look at the big picture. Where was he drafted in daily, you know, in season-long fantasy? What did we think about coming into the year? And then I try to look at value off of that. I think, especially in DFS, it's a world where people overreact. Oh, so-and-so had one good game. So-and-so had 2 good games. We need to price them way up like that. I like to look at the bigger picture and think, like, this guy had huge expectations. He was going as people's RB2 in season-long fantasy leagues. So I like him. I think he's got a ton of potential. And 4,200, you're taking a flyer on a running back. I mean, the minimum running back price is 4,000 now. So 4,200, it's basically a min price running back. And I don't know if this is the week. Well, you know what? This probably is the week if he's gonna. That, like you said, that defense is really blowing up right now with injuries. So yeah, I have no problem with that at all. And that's exactly the kind of guy I like. A guy that if he scored 2 touchdowns this week, that wouldn't surprise you at all. And that's the kind of guy I like it for value prices.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. Now, Dan's checking in, asking if Salvin Ahmad, you know, a sleeper this week. To me, I'm going to be honest with you. I think his number's too high. You know, I like Ahmad. I do. You know, Brady played again last week, so he didn't get the amount of reps that he's accustomed to. He went from 21 to 12, and I'm sorry, but for $5,100 for a guy who's not scored more than 15 points is too high for me, especially when there's guys to me like a Frank Gore even at 4,300 that's going to get more volume. So I'm not really all in on Ahmed. What do you think, Jason?
No, I agree with you too. And Gaskin, I think, got activated from IR today too, so he's going to play, right? So I don't think they would bring.
Gaskins comes back this week.
They're not going to bring him back unless he's completely healthy. So I would assume he's going to be the bell cow. He'll probably get a lot of the work. It might be a 60-40 split, but yeah, if I'm going to go either one of those, I'm going to go Gaskin, I think.
I love Gaskin. I do. I have him on my team, just waiting for him. So if he comes back this week, I'm excited. I like the prospects of him 100%. Moving to the wide receiver position again. I was looking just like you said. I mean, not a ton of value. It's all over the place. A couple guys that kind of stick out to me. Listen, I don't know if I want to pay 8,100 for D Hop. I still think that Devontae Adams is still the guy that you would pay the top dollar for. Keenan Allen has been tremendous. He's really starting to get up there as Mr. Ultra Consistency. And I think I might look at, now he's going to be playing against Tre'Davious White in Buffalo. In Buffalo, it's going to be a little cold. So I don't know what that's going to look like. I'm excited about Josh Allen versus Josh Herbert. I think it's going to be a tremendous matchup. I just think that Allen may take a little bit of a step back this week. I look on the other side of the ball, Jason, and I really like Stephon Diggs this week. 7,600. I would take Stephon Diggs as my number one receiver this week in DFS.
Yeah, I love that too. Justin Herbert has been awesome, obviously, this year, and Keenan Allen's been awesome too, like you said. But I worry the California boy going to the East Coast. It's going to be cold. It might be snowy. I mean, I worry about that a little bit. He's been great and he's paid off, a lot. But like you said, their prices are getting up there now too. They're finally priced up where they should be. So yeah, I like the other side better. I pretty much play Diggs every single week, so I'm all in for that. He's usually in about 30 to 40% of my lineup. So yeah, I'm definitely on board with that too.
Yeah, it's funny because I got a lot of flack earlier in the year because I was all in on Stephon Diggs, and I told everybody, I'm telling you, Stephon Diggs is going to be a top 7 receiver when it's all said and done in fantasy. They told me I'm crazy. No way. What has he done, right? And look and behold, listen, I just, when they traded for him, the biggest thing that Josh Herbert needed was a number 1 go-to receiver. And that's what they gave him. And, they have the best compliment in a guy like John Brown, who's going to go long and open up the inside for Stephon Diggs. And that's what he needed. Our buddy Phil's checking in. He wants to know what our top 2 value plays for Turkey Day DFS. So here, interesting, Phil. Interesting. So listen, I'll tell you what. Value plays, you never know, right? You never know what's going to happen on Turkey Day. So I'll throw a curveball here. Okay, I'll give you a $4,000 Tony Pollard pick. It's in Dallas. Tony Pollard broke one last week, and if you're paying $4,000 at a value pick for a Thursday Turkey Day game, you're only expecting, if you get more than 10 points, you get double those points. That is a bonus. So maybe a game gets out of hand a little bit. Maybe they give Pollard a couple more touches, but I think Pollard breaks another one this week. So for running back, Jason, I'll go Pollard as my value pick.
I like I'm gonna switch it up and go wide receiver. Michael Gallup. I like him at $3,500.
Ooh,
he's got some sort of rapport with Andy Dalton. I mean, 3,500. He had 5 targets last week, so nothing real special or anything like that. But the first game that Dalton played, I think it was that he had like 12 targets. So obviously Dalton's gonna look his way, and I think at 3,500, dude's a home run hitter. He could get a long one at any point, and I like him. That's my sneaky wide receiver play of the week.
I like it. You know what? I'm going to drop you 300, and I'm going to go Steve Sims Jr. of Washington, who scored last week and the week before got 9 targets. I think Alex Smith is starting to zone on Sims Jr. a little bit. There's going to be a lot of emphasis put on Terry McLaurin. And again, at the end of the day, Dallas does not have a very good secondary right now. So I'll tell you what, I'm going to go Sims Jr. at 3,200. So listen, here's the thing. Me and Jace are basically giving you a combined a $7,000 value for 2 players that should get you double-digit points. So, Phil, you can thank us with one of those Fox Pizza specials.
Send us some money or something.
Right? Something, Phil. Got to give us something for that. Dan says, whenever I consider Mike Williams and don't play him, he does very well. Always. You're right. You're right. Isn't he right?
Same for me,
too. It happens all the time.
Yeah. And every time I play him, he'll give me 4 points, guaranteed.
Yeah. It's so right, man. And there's so many. Listen, Nelson Aguilar is another one. Aguilar has the highest target to catch rate in the NFL. He has 6 touchdowns. He's playing great. I start him, I get nothing. Right? He gets me. The one week I started him, I hop him up. I'm on the game. I'm like, yo, you got to start Aguilar. Boom, he gets a 0. And then I got 30 people in my DMs going, yo, you told me to start Aguilar. like, relax, man. He's a boomer bust guy. What do you want from me? You know what I mean?
Pretty sure I put him in. I'm pretty sure I put him in my favorite plays that week too. 0 points. Yep.
Look, Phil says free pizza if I win with value plays. Well, you got to send one to Detroit, Phil. You know what I mean? So I hope how we doing that? Do you have maybe he has make your own pies? If he has make your own pies,
he does. His pizza shop's doing those fundraisers right now. The little pizza kit, so he can send me one. Perfect.
See that? I like that. I did not know that. I did not know that. How about this one, Jason? I'll give you one. And Phil, this is for Sunday though. I'm going to go Keelan Cole at $3,600. I mean, $3,600 is like that is so low. That's giving you the opportunity to take a guy like Devontae or D Hop at that 8,000 plus number and get a guy like Dalvin Cook. You could start. See, these are the guys that, my co-host John, he always says to me, man, you always pick these low budget guys. The problem is because, like I told you, I start off with these guys like Dalvin Cook. I'm already $18,000 in a hole. So if I hit on these guys, again, $3,600, he's averaging 12 points a week. People don't understand that. I mean, this kid, okay, he didn't have a great week last week. I understand that. But the week before, he had 22 points. And, you just never know when you're talking about a guy under $4,000. I mean, it's a plus. Like you said, 6 points is a plus.
Yeah. For sure. I have one for you too. Brashad Perriman. Dude has been awesome. And he's 4,300 this week. I love him. I love him even more if Darnold plays, which I don't know if Darnold's going to play or not. But yeah, I love him 4,200, even better. So that's my
that's a good he's been good
for the week.
Yeah, he's definitely been good. And I'll give you one more. One of these weeks, I'm telling you, I don't know if it's going to be this week because, of the schedule being, crazy with everything happening and now the game get moved to Sunday. But Dez Bryant is going to have a game where he's going to be on the web gems. He's going to be on ESPN. Everybody's like, look at Dez after 2 years. He had 5 targets last week. Okay, it's 7 fantasy points. So I'm telling you what, he's $3,600. If you pick the right, and it's not this week against Pittsburgh. But what I'm saying is, in the next couple of weeks, that value is going to be extremely low, and you're going to be able to put him in your flex, and he's going to give you one of those weeks with like 6 for 80 and a touchdown, and you're going to look like a genius because I think he's definitely going to have 1 or 2 of those games for the years out.
It's funny when the slate first came out, I was looking at value plays, and Dez Bryant was 100% in my Thursday lineup. I made a few lineups, and I'm like, I can't go away from this guy. He's going to get targets. He was low price. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, I'm 100% going to go Dez Bryant, and then the game gets canceled. So now it's obviously a bigger question, but.
Yeah, but they're the kind of guys you look for, and that's what I say every week. I mean, they are the kind of guys you have to look for. I mean, you could go. I scroll through this list and I look, and I'm like, okay, there's got to be who are these boomer bust guys? Because I'm telling you, I'll fill out my first 7, my first 7, or actually 6, and then I have like nothing left. And I'm like, all right, I have like an average of like $2,000 per player, but. I'll tell you what, if you just hit on one of those guys, you're set, man, because, people don't understand the way DFS works. I try to explain this. There's a star percentage. People have to understand, like, how many times, how many people are starting Dalvin Cook? So guess what? Your numbers are going up just like everybody else's. You have to get 1 or 2 guys that are different from everybody else. It's the only way you're going to win, isn't it?
I think so, 100%. Ownership matters, obviously. Yep. But I think you see sometimes people get that in their head and they try to like almost correct themselves, and then they go too contrarian.
Yes.
It's like you could still play the guys that are going to be highly owned. But like you said, 1 or 2 guys in your lineup that nobody owns, 1 or 2%, that's all you need. You don't need to go crazy. You don't need to have half your guys be 3% or under. You just need to have that 1 or 2, guys that are low owned in any DFS sport is like that.
That's a great point because a lot of people, it's like head coaches, they play around too much, right? It's a great point because you only need, sometimes it's only one guy. I mean, me and you could have the exact same lineup except one guy, and it's that one $3,000 budget guy that's going to win that matchup, man. Dan says Cole Beasley has been my godsend with DFS Sweat. And there's a perfect example. Cole Beasley can get for under $4,000. And again, he scored a couple of weeks and he looked like a genius. So you start Cole Beasley, he is the man. He is the absolute man.
You know who else is like that too? Denzel Mims from the Jets. He's like that too. He was 3,300 last week. He's only 3,500 this week. I think he put up like 10 or 11 points last week. Nothing crazy, but at 3,300, that's 3x value. That's huge.
It is. I mean, it really, really is. I mean, and again, we're moving right to tight end. It means even more for the tight end position because I do not pay for tight ends. I will not pay $7,000 for Kelsey. I will not pay $6,000 for Waller. I never paid that amount of money. I always look at the lower budget guys, and I'll tell you what. When you look at this list, I mean, Trey Burton has done nothing but score touchdowns. Nothing but score touchdowns. And every single week, I feel like he's scoring a touchdown. And he's always under $3,500. So, if you can get a guy like that as your tight, they're the guys I look for. Right, they're the guys. I mean, you get guys like a Tyler Kroft in Buffalo that plays in a really good offense. I mean, Tyler Kroft is only $2,900. Right, I started Tyler Eifert last week as my tight end. He cost me $2,800, and he gave me 6 points. I'm good with that. I that's all I need. I mean, that's all you need. And just think if that guy would have scored and you could get 13 or 15 from a guy who costs under $3,000. It's a no-brainer, man. It really is.
Think about how few tight ends actually project for more than 10 points a game. I mean, this is like, what, 3, 4 maybe, depending on the week, depending on the slate.
That's a great point.
I'm never going to pay up for my tight ends ever. Logan Thomas is another one. He gets you 5-6 targets a game. He might get you 3 points, but in a good week, he gets you 15, and that could break a slate. So, yeah, my advice is pretty much never pay up. Find that low-owned guy at tight end, especially that is a punt play that has a good chance to get 5 or 6 targets. If he falls in the end zone, your week's done. Your week's made, pretty much.
Yes. Yeah, it makes it a lot easier. Now, one of those guys this week I really like Austin Hooper against Jacksonville. We're 29th against a tight end in fantasy. He's averaging 7 to 8 points a week. He just came back from injuries, getting acclimated. He's only 3,800. Another guy's very, very cheap, very low, on that tier that we talk about. Eric Ebron, even $4,100. I know it's a little high, but he always seems to be able to find the end zone somehow. But again, I just don't overspend on tight ends. That's all my advice is to you.
100%.
So what we like to do here is we play a little game called Roulette, and it's pretty fun. Dan says I live on Ebron. Dalton Schultz. Dalton Schultz is another good one. Yeah. He did get a garbage touchdown last week, but again, Dalton Schultz, with Andy Dalton, he likes the tight end. So as long as Andy Dalton's there, Schultz will have a decent game. 100%. But this week we play a little fantasy roulette. Every week we see who do you think is going to score more points than the other. We pick certain guys. This week we're only going to do 4. We usually do 8. We're only going to do 4. We got about 5 minutes left in the show, and we're going to start right off with tight ends because we're on tight ends. And Mark Andrews, who's been a ghost forever, all of a sudden decides to play last week. Miraculously, he decides to enter into the fantasy headlines. This week, again, he's going up against Baltimore. We don't know what's going to happen, right? We have no idea. The game got pushed. And you got Hunter Henry going up against Buffalo. A very interesting matchup as well on a high-powered offense with Josh Herbert. Jason, who would you pick? Who do you think scoring more points this week, Andrews or Henry?
To me, it's Henry. Like you said with Andrews, I never get Andrews right, and he's like one of those guys that once every 4 games he has a huge game. I like Henry a lot. I like his consistency in targets: 7, 4, 7, 6, and 7 the past 4 weeks. So yeah, I really like him a lot this week, and I think that's a really good stacking option if you're going to go with Justin Herbert this week. What about you?
Yeah, I like that as well. I do. I'm going to go Hunter Henry because guess what? You know what? I'm not worried about. I'm not taking the pressure of picking Mark Andrews and then him stiffing me. I'm not doing it. I've done that enough. I'm not doing it again. So I'm all in on a Hunter Henry. I like him right there. Let's look at wide receivers. Again, we talked about this earlier. Michael Thomas finally comes back to fantasy relevancy. And one guy we didn't touch on, it was in the pregame, but we could touch on a little bit now, is Mike Evans, who has quietly become an elite receiver with Tom Brady. I mean, listen, we talked about Godwin earlier. We understand Antonio Brown starting to get more touches. I know they have Gronk, but Mike Evans is being looked to all the time. And he's really the one thing about Mike Evans on a personal level, he's always been inconsistent on his effort. There's always been that question about Mike Evans. I think this could have been no better for him to get a head coach like Bruce Arians and a quarterback like Tom Brady, because it has made him grow exponentially, especially fantasy-wise. So, Jason, what do you think? Mike Evans or Michael Thomas, who shines more this week?
You know what? I love both of these guys, but I'm going to go with Mike Evans. Is there a receiver that's looked at more in the red zone than him? I mean, if there is, I don't know. I mean, it seems like they just stare him down, and he is just a monster in the red zone. I like both these guys. Both these guys are going to be in my lineups this week, but I'm going to go Evans with a slight lead to Evans.
You make a great point. Remember earlier in the year, there was a couple games where Mike Evans only had a couple catches, but they were both touchdowns, right? Yeah. So he's consistently looked at in the red zone, and he has really grown as a receiver. It really has. Really nice.
You know what, too, with Evans is it's one of those things with Evans. I think it just took some time with Brady to get on the same page as him. Now it's like now they're clicking, and that offense looks really, really good. So yeah, I like.
No, it's a good point. It's a good point, because again, there was no off season, there was no training camp, right? I mean, and that's the thing, and this is a completely different offense. And I'll tell you what, when you're Mike Evans and you turn around and you look at a legend like Tom Brady as opposed to Jameis Winston, man, what a breath of fresh air that must be, right? I'll tell you, 100%. Now let's go to the running backs here, because this is an interesting one, because these are two guys. I'm a really high on Antonio Gibson. I love what he's been able to do. I started riding his train about 3 weeks ago. He's continuing to be the guy they look to, in Washington. Ronald Jones, to me, again, he's better than I thought. I thought Leonard Fournette was going to be the guy when they got him, but he's not. Leonard Fournette looks like he's checked out, right? So I definitely like Ronald Jones. I don't know, between these two guys, what do you think of, Jason?
I'm going Gibson on this one. I like his trajectory right now. It seems like he's involved. He's starting to get involved in the passing game a little bit as well, too. Jones is one of those guys that he's kind of almost like an every other week kind of guy, too. And it's like him and Fournette. It's like who's going to get – it seems like Jones gets the touchdowns, but Fournette's getting some touches lately. It's kind of hard to figure out that team. So, yeah, I would go Gibson. I just like his opportunities, and he's getting involved in the passing game, too, now.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I never loved Thursday games, but this week, going against a Dallas team who really can't stop anybody, like we've talked about. Antonio Gibson, even though McKissick is the target guy and he does get a little goal line work, Antonio Gibson is an electric running back who, Ron Rivera. That franchise has changed so much under Rivera's tutelage out there, and it just showed the professionalism that a real head coach can bring, and instead of that stiff Jay Gruden. So Antonio Gibson definitely reaps the rewards of that for sure. And then we're going to end with this, and this is going to be, it's going to be a good one. Right, because we have two guys that essentially are going neck to neck in an MVP campaign here, right? We have Josh, especially for fantasy. We have Josh Allen. Okay, we've already talked about him, and we have Russell Wilson. And Russell Wilson is playing the hapless Eagles, who I hate to say, you see the jersey I'm wearing. Props to Jeremiah Trotter, one of my favorite players of all time, but the Eagles, they're just not the same team, man. And Russell Wilson, he's been erratic as of late. He's threw 10 interceptions this year, which is unlike him, starting to force things a little bit, which I'm not sure why. But I don't think he's going to have any issues this year. This week in against Philadelphia. So who do you think comes out on top here?
I love Russ. I'm going to preface this by saying I love Russ. He's one of my favorite football players, but I'm actually going to go Josh Allen this week. Like you said, Russ is starting to turn the ball over a little bit. He knows with that team that they don't have a running game right now, obviously, with Carson being out. He's kind of forcing the issue a little bit. He knows that he has to be great for them to be great, and he's kind of been forcing it lately. So I like Allen, especially at home. Seems like good weather, bad weather, it's not really going to matter too much for him, and I like him and his receivers a lot this week. So I like Josh Allen.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm going to go out. Even though anybody like our buddy Dan Texas says anyone against the Birds, I agree. I understand, but I just listen. I just don't trust them. I don't. I think I don't know if Chris Carson comes back this week or not, but I just think that they're going to run the ball a lot more this week because they're going to understand that they can do that. And I think Pete Carroll is a very smart coach. Like you said, Russell Wilson's forcing it more than ever, and I think his coach understands that, and his coach will be like, "Hey, Russ, let's dial it back a little bit. Let's get the short passing game going a little more. Stop worried about going deep down the field all the time." And I think because if you remember, you like Russ, and I was telling everybody this in the preseason. Russ went to Pete and said, "I want to open this offense up this year. I want to go downfield more." And in the beginning, it was working, and now it's not a little bit. So I think it's Pete Carroll's job to pull in the reins a little bit, and I think this will be the week for him to do it. So I definitely like Josh Allen as well. I think Josh Allen is definitely the guy. So again, we went an hour 15. Jason, I can't thank you enough. Do me a favor, take these couple minutes, let everybody know where they can find your work. The stuff you do is tremendous. I love talking back and forth to you every Sunday on Twitter. We disagree, we agree. You make some very great valid points. I appreciate that. Let everybody know where they can find you.
Yeah, for sure. So I do a weekly article and a weekly fantasy show for All About the Birds. Usually our weekly fantasy show is at 8:30 on Thursday nights. Check us out. Me and Phil are going to do the show. We're actually going to do it Friday this week, but typically it's Thursday at 8:30. And then I typically post my article on All About the Birds on Friday afternoon each week.
Awesome, man. And again, we got the leader, All About the Birds, Peter Nasa, way to up the value of the show with Jason. And my buddy Dan checking in. Great show, man. Jason, you're terrific. So another compliment from the Heat Ratio audience. Again, Jason, listen, thank you so much for joining me on late notice. I can't wait to have you again. I'd love to get you on with me and John and have a triple box going, have a nice sausage going. We'll see when you're free. And again, happy Thanksgiving. And like I tell everybody, as always, stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll catch you next week.
Amen. Thanks for